The sequel to the time-traveling survival game Grand Emprise has just been released. However, in this one you will not visit various time periods. We find ourselves on a small island with a large tower. There are multiple portals and each leads to a unique area, which have different survival criteria. Currently only one of them is open, and by completing tasks in that location, we unlock the next one. So I started scaling the tower, as the portal should be around here somewhere, and up made sense to me. This got more difficult as it went on, to the point where I felt like we were not supposed to be up this far. After some work I found a portal, but this one seems to be closed, so I kept moving on until I found a hole that led down to the center of the tower. Since the portal up here was closed, surely we had to be lower. While this would turn out to be correct, we were too low. I managed to get myself stuck under the map and had to reset the entire game. So time to make a second save and head back into the tower. And turns out, the portal was right next to the front door. So whoops. I went through the green portal and found myself on a floating island deprived of life, except for a small area around this flower. The game advised us to open the tech tree. This is where we can see our tasks. By completing these, we unlock new recipes that will help us advance. There's 3 points where we can start, picking berries, but this does not lead to any new unlocks. Picking the oxygen flower, this goes through the main mechanic of this portal, where we have to plant these to bring back life and create oxygen. And lastly, picking up a stone. This line goes for the main tools and armor upgrades. In order to get a stone, we simply have to hit the ground. Similarly, I began harvesting wood by punching trees with my bare hands, as you do. This does hurt us, so I did not want to get more than I needed. Up next, I wanted to pick the flower so we can start our regrowing process on the side, but I accidentally picked a bush, finishing the berries task. Ultimately, this is no big deal as we need the food and I want to complete every task here anyway. To expand our work area, I planted the newly harvested oxygen flower, and it immediately turned it from a barren wasteland into a lush grass field. I punched a rock, somehow not hurting my hands, and I began building a workstone so we could craft basic tools. With an axe, pick, and spear in hand, I took another look at the list. It branched off again. The raw meat looked like it would be the easiest one to complete, as afterwards all we had to do was cook it over a campfire, and that would close out the entire line. Now around our little island, we have orcs wandering about. While combat is not my favorite thing in this game, after getting the pattern down, he went down easily. And now it's time to chop him with the axe. This is something I would not like to eat, but it's a survival situation, and those berries are not going to help us for much longer. To build the campfire, we required more stones. Instead of running off and mining, I decided to build a few new farm plots, as we had the supplies. While we cannot grow food, these plots are used to create more oxygen flowers. With the new one planted, I went out to collect materials again. This gave it some time to grow, as when I got back, it was done. I harvested both of them and went to the workstone. Here we were able to combine them to create a tier 2 oxygen plant, and when planted, it heals a larger area. I placed the campfire and started cooking the meat. This would take a while, so I looked at our next task. If we crafted another tier 2 plant, we could grow that one as well. So we got the wood we needed, collected the meat of the fire, built another farm plot, crafted a new plant and planted it. This opened a new portal on the island. However, before going through it, I wanted to finish up the 2 remaining tasks. We only had 1 line left. For this, we just needed to combine the tier 2 oxygen plants to create a tier 3 and plant it in a farm plot. This is the highest level we can craft, and what it does is it breathes life into a large area around it. The final task before we entered the portal was simple. We had to build a storage basket. With nothing left to do, I walked over to the portal. We could enter it from both sides. However, one of them would lead to a dead end. The other side though, it went to a fair. Complete with a small train, lemonade stands, the turning cup things, and a Ferris wheel. For the quest we had to ride it, so I stepped inside and saw something I was not expecting. This fair was located on the island we were at this entire time. Looking around, you were able to see other floating islands, and we needed to get to those. When I got down, I headed back to our base and looked at what we needed for a paraglider. It requires a lot of fiber and planks. The planks were easy, as we could make those at the woodworking station. But to get fiber, we needed to create new grassy areas, as I harvested almost every bush already. So that's what I did. I came face to face with a troll while running around, but it was pretty slow and stood no chance. After grabbing some tier 3 oxygen plants and crafting the glider, I set out. We had to use an updraft so we can get up high enough to get to the next island. Upon landing, I quickly placed down one of the plants, as this island had none, and I did not feel like dying due to a lack of oxygen. This island was filled with coal and iron rocks. After getting a few, I flew back home, as next we needed a furnace to smelt the ore into bars. I didn't grab a lot, so we could only make a couple, and this was enough to build an anvil, but nothing else. Before I went back to mine some more iron, I wanted to plant a few more flowers around the island, so we could breathe nearly in every spot. This was done pretty fast, and I glided back to the new island, where I mined some more iron and coal. With a full inventory, I headed back, and I began smelting them into iron bars. While waiting, I wanted to expand our tier 3 farm, so I added a few more farm plots and planted them. With the bars finished, I started on the new tools. Sadly, we did not have enough to make the sickle, so I had to go back once again to mine more ore. Luckily, this did not take long, and now we have a full iron set. This sickle is one of the new tools, and with it, we seem to get more fibers when harvesting bushes. But on the downside, we no longer get berries. With every tool we needed in hand, it was time to craft some armor. We would need to build a loom and craft cloth in order to make some. It did not cost much to construct the loom. The cloth, on the other hand, required a fair amount of fiber. Luckily, we just made a sickle, so this would go a lot faster. So not long after, I was able to craft every part of the armor. Our next big task is to obtain a heater core. For some reason, this would be found beyond a portal on the new island. The game advised us to become prepared. I just made the best armor and weapons we could, so I headed out. This portal seems to lead to a restaurant, but it feels kinda eerie as it was all abandoned. On the second floor there was a larger portal we had to jump into. This led to the first boss of the game, Samurai, who kicked my ass multiple times. Eventually I ran out of food to heal, but there was no getting out of this fight, as no matter which respawn point I picked, it would always spawn me back into this room. After many attempts, I got the patterns down and defeated him. This granted us the heater core and the portal back home. Turns out that the reason we had to obtain this core was so we could make an airship. Besides that, it took a large amount of other resources. And it did not help that I thought we needed 80 cloth, but instead we only needed 40. So that was a huge time sink for no reason. But after I got everything and built it, it was time to take to the skies. There was another island marked that we had to go to. It was pretty far away, so I see why we couldn't just glide there. Upon arriving, it was a very small and empty island. It did have a portal that hung slightly off the land, so I made a leap of faith and made it to the other side. This led to a beautiful and long hall, and at the end it opened up to a Roman or Greek looking building. I rushed forward and fell. While falling, I did notice that we were not allowed to use the glider here, so after I respawned, I ran back, got ready for a big jump, and failed again. You would think third time's the charm, but in our case, we didn't even get a third time. As reality seems to have broken, the building is now blocking the portal. In any case, we were now able to fly over to the other side using our airship. So I flew to the furthest part and got off to look for a portal. I did notice a boss a bit back, but nothing on this platform. And there was also no way to get over to the boss from here. I wanted to fly back, but when I turned around, the ship was gone. I tried to jump over and failed. This would respawn me at the airship, which for some reason was chilling on the roof. I used it to fly over to the boss looking dude and confronted him in combat. I expected this to be a lot harder than the last one, but to my surprise he was very slow and only got one hit on us before I defeated him. A new portal opened up and I jumped through it. It took us back to the tower we found at the beginning. And with every task complete in the nature area, which is what the floating islands were called, it must have meant that the new portal opened up in the tower. I looked around and found one on the second floor. This would take us to a completely different area. Instead of floating islands, we are now underwater, and no land in sight.